Monarch is building the future for those interested in one wallet that consolidates the best services and functionality into one simple and easy-to-use app. Monarch will empower users to control all aspects of their financial kingdom from the palm of their hand. You may have heard the phrase, not your keys, not your crypto. With Monarch, you own your keys and seed, meaning you own your crypto. With Monarch, you can store, receive, send, swap, buy, sell, and earn interest on your crypto, track your portfolio, the news, the market cap, and more today. We're constantly adding new services and updates too. Learn more today by visiting monarchtoken.io or download the wallet for free today from Apple or Google. Hey everybody, welcome to Beards and Bitcoins, the crypto podcast for the man's man. I am joined here with my co-host, Jay Chains. We got a special guest on the show today, Toufic Adlouni. He is a lawyer in the crypto world. Got to meet him at World CryptoCon. We had some pretty interesting discussions. I thought it'd be a really cool episode to kind of talk a little more about the legal side of crypto. How are you doing, Toufic?
I'm doing great. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I guess let's get started. Jay, what is something you think that is very important when it comes to the crypto legal world that's going on right now?
Well, I know that one of the things that concerns a lot of people, it concerns me, especially as, laws and regulations are changing, is KYC, AML. I know that that's, pretty hot topic on a lot of people's minds, especially when you're hopping into new exchanges or signing up for, the other day we were talking about crypto.com, signing up for, cards like that, so you can spend your crypto, you've got a KYC and AML. What does all that mean with regulations changing? I think that's probably a pretty important thing to me and a lot of our listeners, pretty much anybody in the crypto space, especially here in the United States and North America. Because Toufic, you're coming from, is it Montreal?
Yeah.
A brother from the North with his beard and his Bitcoins.
That's right.
Yeah. I'm 2 for 2. Yeah. We just got a 10-inch dump.
Yeah.
Just a couple of days ago. Yeah, it's crazy. Earliest we've had to do a snow removal.
No, yeah, Ben and I are both Southern boys here, so it's actually there was frost on the roofs.
I had to scrape ice off the wife's car yesterday. So.
Oh, really? Where are you based out of, J Chain?
Austin, Texas.
Nice, cool. Yeah. It's been a little bit tough, but I'm excited to try to get some traveling in January. I'm looking forward to that. But yeah. To the question, for sure, KYC, AML is huge on everybody's mind. When I go into any types of chats vis-a-vis legal and crypto, it's what everyone's talking about. And I think one of the things that maybe we'll just start from a high level, what it means know your client, anti-money laundering, right? So essentially, if you're going to be dealing with money, if you're a money services business, if you're going to be holding other people's money, as a third party, you have to have certain obligations in which where the money's coming from, that the money's accounted for, and that you do the correct amount of verifications of the people's identification. Essentially, there's a lot of ways in which you can money launder. And we've had certain clients that have had some really funny, kind of money launderings where it's kind of like, 20% discount. You meet someone in person, in Milan, wink, wink, nudge, nudge,
like a local Bitcoins kind of thing.
Yeah. You go, well, like in this situation, it was that you got invited to do a buy sell BTC transaction, but you get like a certain haircut on it, and then you pay the guy back in cash, right? Okay. So then essentially you take the cash, put in Bitcoin, and then later you get it out. But then at least it comes out as it's essentially a cleaning mechanism. I think that we as lawyers as well, like I have my own law firm and we have a trust account. So anytime we accept money or accept clients, we also have KYC, AML obligations as well. One of the most fascinating things about it, because I actually had the ability to live implementing it as a business owner, is how much of a ridiculous concept it is. It's so ridiculous in terms of the actual application of it. And I'm going to give you guys crazy amount of examples. Well, I'm not going to give you just one big anecdote, but I think this anecdote can also be transferred to other folks that have KYC, AML obligations as in the crypto business. So I'm a lawyer. I'm doing my thing. I get an email from some guy and he says, hey, I need a lawyer. I found you on the Bar Society directory. I essentially want to purchase a crane, right? I want to purchase a crane for about $500,000. and I want you to do the contract. I want to put the money in your trust account. You then pay the supplier. He's going to ship the crane. And once the thing is shipped, you can disperse the funds. All right. Not super weird. Weird that the guy came out of the blue.
Yeah.
But other than that, not super weird. I asked for his documentation, right, to do kind of my KYC, right? And I'm doing it classic, like the classic style. I don't have any of this automated at the moment. We don't have that many clients in which we have to have like an automated system like Jumio does, in which it kind of just like rolls through thousands of IDs and selfies. But, you know, I was just doing it the way we usually do it. And I told him to send a photocopy of his ID, and he did. And I took a look at it. I didn't even see his face, but all I had to do is verify his ID and make sure that it looks legit, right? That's kind of the obligation I have. And this is where, you'll see, this is going to come back into the story a little later. And I look at his ID and I noticed something. I was like, buddy's smiling. You don't smile in government IDs. They tell you to have a straight face. So I started doing research on the ID. I look it up. I try to see what are the security features on the ID. So this ID was from British Columbia in Western Canada. And I go onto their website, the driver's license, the DMV, and I saw the example they had on the website. And there was a lot of remarkable similarities between the two IDs. You know, same height, same eye color.
Oh, just like the template, like the template.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, so now I need to go to the next step. I need to verify if this is a legitimate ID or not. So I call the police. And I'm like, hey, I need you guys to help me out. I'm a lawyer. I'm doing my KYC obligations. I need to verify that this ID, if it's fake or not. And, you know, I call the police and they say, well, we can't actually issue that information to you because that's protected under Privacy Act. And I'm like, well, I think there's a crime being committed right now. I think, number one, there is probably a conspiracy to fraud, right? Or conspiracy to money launder. There's also, you know, I have reasonable grounds to believe that someone has, you know, falsified government. Yeah, exactly. Government issue ID. So can you guys open a case, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, well, that's a Montreal issue. That's not a BC issue. I go, right, fine. So I call the police in Montreal. Same thing. Like, Privacy Act, can't help you there. It's a BC issue. It's not a Montreal issue. I'm like, well, This is ridiculous. I'm like, this guy might not even exist. How can a person that doesn't exist have privacy rights? You know, I thought I was pretty smart to say that, but they were like, no. And even when I started calling a bunch of the precincts in where the guy said he lives. And even one of the police officers next to him said something of the sort like, well, if there was no crime that was being committed, why should we investigate this?
What about conspiracy? That's a crime.
Yeah, for sure. So I was totally flabbergasted, but I finally landed on some guy who seemed like a bit of a maverick, but he said, tell me the ID number. And I gave him the number and he was like, no, don't receive money from this guy. That's all he said. I'm like, so why do you, after like the 4 precincts that have called to help me out with this issue, why have you only been the person that's been able to help me out on this? He's like, look, I didn't give away any information about the guy, but I only told you not to take money from this guy. So I ended up going into doing some research here. And I'm like, well, what's going on here? There seems like a big breakdown with this KYC obligation that we're placing upon, you know, crypto companies, where when we do get falsified documents, how are we supposed to do that second and third level verifications to ensure that it is falsified? And if it is falsified, that we report them to the correct authorities. And essentially, from what I've been understanding, at least in the Canadian context, is that the obligation is only to verify, right? If you have verified, your obligation is set. And there's actually a bit of a debate about this, is do you have to go even further? Or is that kind of it? But that's kind of where the debate is. One people say it's this, one people say it's that. At the end of the day, it seems like a law with no teeth if you can't even pursue the people that are giving you fake IDs.
Right. So if the guy says that he wants to ship a crane, but really he's shipping like a ton of heroin, the liability's off of you because you checked his ID at least once and said, okay, my hands are clean here.
Exactly. But is this a question about liability, or is this a question about effect, right? You know, we can push the blame to here and there, but at the end of the day, what are we trying to do? We're trying to stop people from using, you know, money handling institutions or entities to clean their dirty money, right? But if it's just the blame game, then where is the actual effect of that law? I found it fascinating. And just to finish the story, the guy got really pissed off at me and sent me a check for $500,000. Fakest check I've ever seen. It was so fake. You know, you look it up in the light. I'm like, there's no even watermark. So yeah. It's true. I reported him, but
this is like the real life example of you get an Instagram DM and it's like, have you ever thought about investing in Bitcoin? Like, you know, and they're obviously trying to scam you. Like, but this happened in real life. Like, someone actually contacted you and tried to, you know, send you the fake check and everything. That's crazy.
Growing up, did you ever get the Nigerian print scheme? The emails?
Oh man, I have a ton of stories about that, man. If you got a moment, I'll tell you.
Yeah, let's hear one. These stories are very interesting.
Yeah, I had a tenant, right? One of my places. He just moved in. He's got separated from his wife. Older gentleman, you know, just trying to get back on his feet. He just kept getting scammed after scammed after scammed. I was like, dude, I'm a lawyer. I'm telling you, don't accept any of these freaking scams. And I'll just tell you one of them where he comes up to me and he's like, I'm at the place. He comes up to me. He's like, hey, you know, I don't know about these younger women, but they're falling in love with me. You know, I think they're just, I just think they're sick of you type of guys, you know, treating them like crap. You know, you young guys, and they just want a person who cares, who's a gentleman, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes, you know, I'm talking to this girl, you know, she's 25, super beautiful, shows me pictures. And she's like, yeah, she's on vacation in Nigeria. Light bulb, right?
That's
Yeah,
the first one.
Alarm bells should be ringing here. And he's like, yeah, and you know what? Poor thing. Like, her son got sick on the trip. And, you know, he went into the hospital and they're holding her son until she pays the legal bills, and she can't pay the legal bills. She didn't think her son was going to get sick in Nigeria. I'm like, so what'd you do? He was like, oh, I sent her $10,000.
Oh my gosh. It's hard to believe that there are people on this planet that would still fall for these kind of schemes.
It's unbelievable. But they do. And that's, you know, that's why people do it. Like there's a new scam I talked about on a video the other night on YouTube. So it's basically, we all know the ETH giveaway scam, right? Where they're like, you know, send 0.1 ETH, we'll send you 10 ETH back. And we're like, how do people fall for this? Well, this is the new YouTube version of that. So what these people do is they buy accounts that have large numbers of subscribers, or either they just, you know, pop them up overnight. They go buy 100,000 subscribers, whatever. So these accounts have between, you know, 100,000 and 1 million subscribers on them, and they run a live stream. And what they do on the live stream is they take a transaction log from Block Explorer that shows a ton of different transactions, and they, in the bottom right-hand corner, they will run an interview. So like, let's say I'm doing it for Ripple. It will be a transaction log of Ripple transactions, and then it will be a Brad Garlinghouse interview in the bottom right-hand corner. Or with Litecoin, it's a Charlie Lee interview, whatever it might be. And they try to make it look like it's actually Ripple or it's actually Litecoin doing a live stream, and that these interviews are live. And they say, we're doing a huge giveaway right now, you know, to celebrate this or that. A huge interview with Charlie Lee. We're celebrating this. So and it's the same thing as the ETH giveaway scam. So it's, you know, we're giving away, you know, 20,000 Litecoin. If you send, you know, you send 10 Litecoin, you'll get 100. If you send this, you'll get that. And so it's weird because it's a live stream. And the first time I saw it, I was like I knew it wasn't real. The first one I saw was actually a Binance one. It was CZ getting interviewed. And I was like, man, these scammers, it's like they go to such far lengths. But when you pull up these addresses from those ETH giveaways that were going on in the bull run, like the people are sending them money. It's insane.
That's just insane to me.
Wow, I know. Well, if you keep getting that sophisticated, I guess they've earned that money. They scam you.
I know, right?
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. Like if at this point, like everyone should know, even you feel bad for the old people because old people.
The worst part is the old people. You know, I met a guy here. I'm not going to throw him under the bus, but this is one of the most despicable things I heard is that he partook in a granny scam. I don't know if you know what this is, but this is one of the worst things I've heard. He essentially, you know, they call old people homes. They just like call old people homes, and they're like, hey, blah, 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 it's your favorite grandson. And then she's just like, Johnny? She's like, yeah, Grandma, it's Johnny. I'm in a little bit of trouble now. I got a DUI in Florida, and I need you to post bail. They're asking for like $15K or something, and flustered grandma sends $15K to this account just trying to help her grandson. And, you know, he says, don't tell mom, she's going to get super pissed, type of thing. And next thing you know, it's awful.
That's cold-blooded, man. To rip off a granny, you have no heart. Oh, my God.
If someone does that, their own grandma did not love them.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's,
yeah,
it's
100%.
really
Because my granny loves me a lot, and she loved me growing up very well, and so I couldn't do that to another person. Like I don't know, man. People are cold blooded, like, but the lengths you have to go, and the crazy thing is a lot of these like, okay, you think that a lot of people that are scammers are like, like they're drug addicts or like, they got like really bad problems, but these are like sociopaths is what they are. There are people that like have no feelings and can steal from somebody right in front of them. And it's not like influenced by, like I'm banging heroin in the corner on the street of Vancouver. It's like they methodically think out these ways to be so conniving that they'll steal from old ladies. Like, to me, that's like the lowest common denominator of human existence.
That gets my blood pressure going.
No, it is like, anyway. So yeah, maybe I should take that back. I don't care how sophisticated your scheme is. You're a piece of shit. You're a piece of shit. Yeah, I know,
right?
Yeah. You don't deserve that money.
Well, but I understand I understand what you were saying. The thing is a lot of these scammers that go to these distances, a lot of the hackers, for instance, that, steal millions of dollars, whatever it is, like these people have such incredible skill sets that they could actually be very valuable to a company, working a regular job or even starting their own business. But instead, like at some point down the line, like they've just decided, you know what, I'm just going to be like a dark web person and I'm just going to steal from people. And I don't know.
Yeah. And this is one big part of our legal practice actually is trying to make sure that there's secured systems in internal organizations. We do something that not a lot of law firms do because we're an emerging tech law firm. So a lot of our lawyers are engineers, computer scientists before they became lawyers. So we can offer a little bit of extra technical support. And one of the things we do is you do like privacy audits. How's your information being stored? How's the code? Is it good? Is it compliant with GDPR, with other types of data privacy laws? That's one thing we do. And that's one thing that's super important now in the industry, just that tech protection. And here in Quebec, actually, there was a huge fraud of a bank. One of the big banks here, internal, right? Stole around 150 million. Those internal controls too are going to have to really step up because if you have one person with all that access and there's no type of tracking behavior or tracking certain types of behaviors that might lead to flag that behavior, then you're gonna have people internally stealing some money.
Yeah, that's always the biggest trouble. I've been a part of some conversations within like the athletics industry because that's, where my day job lies. I've been to some sessions and stuff. And with people, like on campus that have that kind of position, where they handle large sums of money, greed sometimes gets the better of you. And then, you take a little bit here and you're like, okay, I'm going to pay it back. And then something happens where you take a little bit more and you're like, oh, now I've dug a hole. And then you can't stop, and then all of a sudden you've embezzled, $500,000 and you're going to prison for a while.
Yeah. And with Bitcoin, it's huge. Like as well, you have people who are essentially trustees of huge amounts of money. And they're just essentially still behaving poorly. And this is one thing when I was at World CryptoCon, I was speaking about one of my speaking engagements. Everyone wants regulatory change. Everyone wants, mass adoption. Everyone wants, regulatory clarity. But if we still have bad actors in the space, how do we expect the SEC and, the population at large to adopt us? And people are like, well, what's part of the game? No. Pump and dumps are not part of the game. Right. It doesn't matter if the pump and dump is happening, on the New York Stock Exchange or if it's happening on Binance. It's a pump and dump. It's a pump and dump, and it's illegal, right? Insider trading, it's still illegal. Just because you're doing it in crypto doesn't matter. You can't do, secret issuances. We were talking about. People were saying it's just part of the game. Oh,
it's the Wild West, man.
It's not. It's not the reason why these laws came into place is because this was happening back in the day, right? And then, the laws matured in a way to stop those things from happening. And yeah, it is a Wild West. And yeah, there is a type of risk that you have to assume when entering it. But I don't think it's just going to have to be the market as itself. I think as the market matures, we're going to have to have different rules in place. But if people don't want to have such heavy-handed rules, and I understand why, they would want to keep regulation not too heavy-handed. That's an argument you could have. You should yourself self-regulate and, expect better behavior from the actors and in the space.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that you have to look at with that, with the KYC, AML, while exchanges and while, these wallets and all that stuff are still hackable, for people to put their private information through knowing that, hey, I feel like I've got a 50-50 chance that I'm going to get hacked. My social security number is going to get out there. A picture of me holding my driver's license with my signature or whatever is going to get out there because it's just not a safe enough space yet. So while we do need regulatory stuff, I think we need a better security, if that makes sense.
It does make sense,
because that will bring on adoption. Once we know that we're in a safer space, and who cares about the volatility and the price? I mean, that is what it is. I think we need to create a safer space so that it's more welcoming. Because like my mom, she's afraid to buy Bitcoin. I hold all of the crypto assets for most people that would be in my family, my wife, my mother, stuff like that. But I think that she would be more willing to carry her own wallets if she knew that she wasn't going to get hacked because of a SIM swap, because of a whatever.
Yeah, you're right. And you're absolutely right that the security needs to also follow and, protect us from the bad actors. But I think one thing that regulation does, it's not only just a dissuasion with, fines and jail time, but it also is supposed to be setting kind of the rules of engagement. And there's always going to be bad actors, obviously. It's never going to stop. But at least if everyone knows the rules of engagement, then we can kind of, help people out. And the SIM swapping, wow, that's... One of my clients got SIM swapped, and I met another guy at World CryptoCon that got SIM swapped too. This is, I think, a huge legal issue as well, because where is the liability here? Who is liable? Yeah,
because it's all inside stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
what about those two guys that just got caught from, was it California?
Massachusetts. No, that was not an inside job. That was just two guys from University of Are you talking about? Yeah, you actually shared it yesterday. I saw. Yeah, those
that was an inside job. That wasn't a guy trying to fool like a customer service rep.
Right. But Michael Turpin, his case, he says, was inside from AT&T, and there was another recent SIM card swap lawsuit where basically they found out that it was inside. I think it was AT&T, and that one of the employees got paid like $600, and the other one got paid like $3,000, and it was millions of dollars. It was actually from I think it actually happened at Consensus last year. A few guys that were speaking at Consensus had got SIM card swapped.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like, it's organized crime. It's organized crime syndicates that are paying employees. Because think about it like this. You work at AT&T. You're a phone rep. You make $11 an hour. And all of a sudden somebody approaches you and says, look, all you got to do is when I call, just verify what I say, and, overlook what is actually supposed to be the case. And I'll cut you $3,000. I mean, that's more than those guys make in 2 months, in some cases.
And on the evidence grounds, if it's shown that, I know there's intent there, so if they can prove intent, then it's all out the window. But, their defense would be essentially, I just did what is reasonably expected of me as a customer service rep. I did it to the best of my abilities. I did it to the best of my abilities. I fucked up, but it's not something that they're sophisticated scammers. I'm just a lonely customer service rep. Woe is me. So no, I get it. And there is definitely an institutional obligation and a legal obligation, but I think also we need to put some onus on ourselves and really start taking our own personal security and information security more seriously. Getting rid of, two-factor identification with your phone number. That's an easy
I don't have 2FA to any phone number that's connected.
Exactly. Yeah. And, putting, having an actual password system and strategy, right? People, you see Kanye when he's at the White House putting 0000. Dude, you're Kanye. Put a goddamn better password on your goddamn phone.
Oh my gosh.
But there's a lot of folks who just don't take it seriously. They're putting their name 1234 and password 1 and whatever, and they think they're getting away with that. You have to have a system. That's the onus is on you.
Well, that's something that in crypto is very difficult for people, and this is why adoption is pretty far away, because the point of cryptocurrency really is for us to be our own bank, because this way we can transfer value back and forth. We don't have to have anyone in the middle. We don't have to have a bank making the transactions. We don't have to have credit card processors, the whole 9 yards. And as of 2016, the entire banking the value of the banking system in the world was $134 trillion. So if you think if you were to take that $134 trillion, and I'm sure it's worth much more now, and to put all that money into the world, okay, we could really raise the standard of living across the board. Now, the bankers would have to find a new line of work. But the problem comes in where when we have to be our own bank, we also have to be responsible for our own security, because we're so used to, if I got, like, I've had my bank account hacked a few times. I've had identity fraud, against me. I had, somebody stole my debit card, hit me with a skimmer and, made all kinds of purchases. When you're your own bank, you don't get to just get that money back. When you bank with Bank of America or Wells Fargo, then 9 times out of 10, if not more, they're just going to be like, we see it wasn't your fault. We're sorry. We'll give you the money back. So we have to be our own bank, but it comes with the responsibility of the security, and there's no fail safe, So I think that's the really difficult transition we're going to have to go through. Because when I talk to people on the street about it, they like the convenience of not having to worry about those things. So I don't know what we have to do to make that transition. What do you think could be, some things we need to think about in that regard?
Well, I think that transition already exists in places where the banking infrastructure is not that high, kind of like in Africa. And this is one of the great use cases in which it's similar to kind of like landlines. Africa completely skipped the landlines because cell phones were much more of a cheaper and easier way to communicate. And it's kind of the same thing with the sophisticated banking system. I got another pretty interesting anecdote for you guys here. So I love
your stories. You have great stories.
Thanks. So I have a client, and he was in gold beforehand, right? And mining and other types of mining endeavors. And obviously he was doing that in West Africa. And the way he would pay people, he would come into town, he would get essentially like a bunch of bodyguards, and he would walk around with a suitcase of cash, right? And he would just drive around town and then pay everyone that he had to pay that are his employees that are in his operation. And one time he did so, and his bodyguard at the time was just like, hey, I just need to stop at my place. Can we do that? He's like, yeah, sure. Stops at the place. His bodyguard tells him to bring in the suitcase. He's like, why do I need to bring in the suitcase? We're in the middle of nowhere. You got a closed fence. Like, it's pretty safe to keep in the car. He's like, it's safer to bring it in. He's like, okay, fine. Brings it to the house. In the house, they jump him. They put a bag over his head. I kid you not.
This is like a movie.
This is like a serious movie. Yeah. It's a gold trade in Africa. It's a little Wild West. And they throw him in the middle of, he said, the desert or something of the sort. So they didn't kill him. And then the police didn't believe them, because anytime this type of stuff happens, usually the guy's shot, right? Usually he's killed, he's not left alive. So they thought it was an inside job. So the police wouldn't even help him out this way. But this guy, being the entrepreneur he is, he says, well, essentially, fuck that. Starts his own, crypto e-banking system, in which now, you take payments, pay process, and he's completely building e-banking platform for Africa to completely avoid that situation, so you can never have to deal with that again. And at the same time, you'll have the ability to, just for general people in Africa, to be able to send money, use money, and rely on a much more fidel currency than their local currencies, which are sometimes, subject to hyperinflation. I think that is a huge use case. And I think that use case is coming to North America too. I don't know if you've been listening, but there's a lot of smart people. I'm not a finance guy, but I am in securities law, so I do understand finance to a certain extent. But there's a lot of smart people saying that there's a lot of devaluing pressures on currencies at the moment, right?
Including the United States, maybe, right?
Including the United States currency, right? And, from a lot of, one guy I listen to a lot is Ray Dalio. I don't know if you know about him, but he just wrote, an article a couple of days ago saying the world has gone mad and the system is broken, right? Mm-hmm. And he's talking about, if we go into another type of currency crisis, that, quantitative easing is not going to save currencies. The Bank of Japan, if they have to go through another route of quantitative easing, are going to own about 100% of the public debt of Japan or something. Don't quote me, but it's something insane of the sort. They can't quantitative ease anymore, and monetary policies are essentially going to shut down. And I think that this is going to be a perfect time for the rise of Bitcoin, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that us as a community, we have to be prepared for that type of opportunity, because those types of opportunities, when, our main reason, our main raison d'etre was to fight, this type of currency manipulation that's happening via central banks. And now where that central banking system is on the cusp of having a breakdown. We need to be ready as a community and as an ecosystem to capture that moment. So I think hopefully, as I kind of preach my message, that we can improve our behavior, get our ducks in line, and kind of mature the market in a more accelerated rate so that whenever and if it happens, we'll be able to capture on that.
Speaking of quantitative easing, I saw a thing yesterday online that's pretty much what Notorious B.I.G. meant when he said, "Mo money, mo problems."
I saw that.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, so I was reading yesterday. I read that tweet also, but I was reading yesterday about, a little bit about the stuff between China and the United States, and where cryptocurrency is heading in China, and they're basically saying that the United States to fight with China and their trade war and things, like the United States could consider devaluing the US dollar, and if they do that, like what kind of repercussions would that have in America if the government decided to do that?
Yeah, like it's kind of a mutually assured. The problem is it's a bit of a mutually assured destruction, and that's why it probably won't happen. Yeah. Right? China at the moment holds so much of US currency, right? Mm-hmm. If it floods the market, it's essentially shitting on it's going to completely devalue one of its biggest assets that it has, right? But by doing so, it also destroys, essentially the greenback, which the whole reason why the United States system works is really because of the continuous and robust demand for American dollar worldwide. Right. And that's the reason why your government is allowed to essentially take on debt to such levels that it is now in the realm of theoretical almost. And this is not me talking, this is my economics professor who kind of said that. At a certain level, it's so much that its existence is kind of in theory. And because of that, it's because of the strength of the greenback. And if that completely gets destroyed, then the United States is in a huge pickle. But at the same time, China will also be in the huge pickle as an owner of a huge amount of the US debt, and also in the owner of so much of US currency. So I think it's one of those mutually assured destruction things, as we know from Satoshi, that can hold true and keep players in line.
Yeah. I mean, China would want to figure this out, right? Because I think we've talked before, because the yen is pegged to the Hong Kong dollar 1-to-1, and the won, right?
Yeah, won.
And the US dollar is pegged 1-to-1. And that's the only way that they can get 1-for-1 is through Hong Kong. And so if our economy collapse, we pop the bubble on the Chinese economy pretty severely, right?
Essentially, it's not going to be a pretty thing, and I don't think either party is going to even want it. As erratic as people may think Trump is, and obviously Xi Jinping, but I don't think either of them or the people around them would want anything of that sort to happen. That's too cataclysmic. What would happen is more with, I think, what Dalia was saying in terms of this. Now we're doing quantitative tightening. How is that going to kind of go about? And if quantitative tightening doesn't work, and there's going to be this huge devaluing pressure, what's going to be the next step there? I think that is going to be much more of a prevalent problem than a couple of those theoretical problems coming up.
All right. Last question.
We went to a final. We cut out law and we went straight into macroeconomics, which is awesome.
Well, this has definitely been a great conversation. Last question. It feels like a lot of stuff that we're talking about, it seems to indicate that at some point a bubble has to pop somewhere. But I for 10 years, I mean, even since the recession, I've been hearing there's a giant global bubble that's going to pop and it's going to wreck the whole world economy, and we're going to be in a huge financial crisis, not a recession, but a crisis. Do you feel like that is a real thing that's going to happen, or do you feel like that the governments always are going to find a way to just keep the bubble going?
I'm not too sure. There's a lot of people way smarter than me.
I haven't met
this
one.
Question. Yeah, thanks. Analyze this question. They don't even answer, but I'll kind of give it my best effort here. So I think that we don't know. The bubble could have already bursted, right? I think because what happened in 2008, that has kind of anchored our perception of what an actual economic crisis is. Well, that economic crisis that happened in 2008 is only an economic crisis that happens once every 100 years, right? So we've kind of anchored ourselves to that. And I think that in and of itself has kind of swayed our perception. There's some times where the Dow and the Nasdaq go down by certain percentage points, as they did, in the last couple of months, but that would actually indicate a type of dip or a type of bubble bursting. That is totally possible. I think one thing now that is really worrying, and this is worrying for me as a lawyer in the space, because we do a lot of VC and private equity transactions for startups, right? So we do the rounds, we raise their seed, their Series A, their Series B. It's part of what we do as a firm. And one of the biggest problems is what we're seeing is this kind of overvaluated valuations of companies, right? Companies have huge valuations. They're leveraging the value of their stock in a variety of different ways. They're getting corporate debt now is skyrocketing, almost similar to what we were seeing in personal debt back in 2007 with respect to mortgages and et cetera. And that's coming from these insane valuations. And we can see that the market is not, some of these high profile IPOs, such as the Ubers, the Lyfts, the WeWork, though it didn't IPO, but I think that it illustrates that, the market was saying your valuations are totally bogus, right? And we're just not buying it. I think that might be a correction that we're going to have to see, possibly, but I don't think there's going to be anything of the sort that we saw in 2008. And I think that in terms of the crypto context, I think there's been talk that, BTC has a kind of inverse effect to, what the market does, blah, blah, blah. That still remains to be seen. I think that I'm really excited for the halving that's coming up next March or April in BTC. I think that if a couple of things line, I think we can see BTC really skyrocketing. One person that I listened to is Saifedean Abbous, who is, I don't know if you know him, but he's the Bitcoin economist. Have you read his book?
Bitcoin Standard.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. Was that an eye-opening book there?
Yeah.
I was kind of like, I wouldn't say I was a BTC maximalist. I was very much like agnostic, and I really believed in the use cases of blockchain much more than the currency itself. I would always say that, you don't see people flying biplanes anymore. The first iteration of an invention usually doesn't stand 100 years later. But after reading that book, I might actually think that, Bitcoin is an exception to the rule. So I think there is a lot of possibilities there. I think folks should always just be, very wary about those trends, but I don't see anything huge happening as it stands. Final point, which kind of, as well, is just on fiscal policy. The Trump tax cuts is something that, though I'm not against tax cuts per se, I think they were used in an inopportune time, where when you're in an economy of huge growth where unemployment levels are at record lows, you then go ahead and give more money to businesses at the expense of your purse. That kind of limits your ability to effectively use fiscal policy in times of a downturn, right? It's kind of like if you have high taxes, one of the things you can do when the economy goes down is you can lower the taxes, and that's actually some relief. When the economy is going well, you should actually use that time to increase your purse. Your tax rate, even though it's consistent in percentage, because people are making more money in the economic upturn, you're actually making more money as the government as well. And you should take the opportunity to, replenish the coffers, not give out another tax cut. So I think it was a tax cut used in an inopportune time. And if there was any big downturn that needed, a significant amount of fiscal policy, expansive fiscal policy there, that might hinder the United States' ability to do so.
Basically, his hands will be tied.
Essentially, because you're going to continuously cut it. You should have had that money to actually, and reinvest in the economy. But then instead of having that money, you give it back right now, which is only going to further push the economy and maybe paper over some cracks. But what was more important is that, at least in my opinion, that you should, in times of prosperity, you should try to keep, tax levels consistent, reap the benefits of those consistencies. And then if things do go south, you can then use policies at your disposal to kind of help people out.
Very interesting.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, well, that's definitely very interesting on, fiscal policy and what's going on. Hopefully we're not going to have a crisis. It always bothers me when Bitcoin people are like, yes, I can't wait for the huge financial crisis where everybody is poor and everyone loses all their money. And
we don't want that.
People can't feed their kids because my Bitcoin will be worth more, So definitely don't know if if that's going to happen. But, we don't want to see blowback and people getting hurt. But it's definitely been a very interesting episode today. We definitely appreciate you, Toufic, for being on the show today. Tell everybody where they can find you at.
Sure. So if they want to check this out, if they need any help with any of their legal stuff, whether if you're raising funds, compliance, we do a lot of, legally compliant issuances, whether STOs or IEOs. We love doing that and other types of convertible instruments on the blockchain. So they can find us at renoco.com. You can also check me out on Twitter. That's Tadlouni, Tadlouni. And I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, Toufic Adlouni. You can go connect with me or connect with our company and see what we're up to.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Toufic. Yep.
Thanks, guys. Really pleasure. Enjoy your sunny days and your hot weather.
Oh, yeah.
And enjoy my 6 hours of sunshine.
Yeah, nice. I'm going on a cruise next week, so I'm excited.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, where are you going?
Just the Bahamas. So 10-year anniversary with the wife. So
Woo!
Many congrats.
Thank you.
Bring those rose petals and that strawberry, sir.
Oh, Lord, don't. She's going to be listening to this. You just ruined my chances.
Sorry, Mama Wild Things.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, it's been a great episode, and we will see you guys on the next one.
See you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
We got this shit locked and loaded.